Abortion became illegal in the United States with the Supreme Court case Roe v. Wade in 1973. Before that, there were an estimated 1,000 women who died from abortions each year. This number is hard to estimate, though, because many deaths were misreported or women often died later due to complications. Dr. Curtis Boyd started doing abortions in 1967, almost 10 years before it was legal. In an interview in 2016, he stated that women came in bleeding with fever. Some of them were quite ill, and occasionally someone died. We thought a lot of these were spontaneous abortions. We did not realize all of them were induced. The only reason we know that now is that when abortion was legalized, these cases disappeared. There were probably over 1 million illegal abortions being provided each year in this country, so when it was legalized, it did not increase the number of abortions. Abortions just had a much higher complication rate before Roe v. Wade, and today, we've made it one of the safest medical procedures that there is. He was first asked to do abortions by Claude Evans, a university chaplain at the Southern Methodist University. He stated that in the 60s, there were a lot of young women on campus, like SMU, who were asking for help, so I think these clergymen began to see it as their Christian duty to hear their stories. Many university chaplains, like Evans, became sympathetic to the plight of young women who became pregnant when they did not want to be. Evans eventually asked if I would consider providing abortion services. Dr. David Grimes also did the procedure before it was legal. He stated in the same interview that decades before Roe v. Wade were the bad old days. It was horrible carnage, and every one of those deaths was preventable. These women weren't dying of exotic diseases. They were dying from simple things like hemorrhages and infections, and any third-year medical student with adequate equipment could have easily handled it. But the reason those women were dying is because the country had not yet made the decision that these women's lives were worth saving. It's just one of the ugly manifestations of misogyny, and needs to be understood as such. It was a profound disdain of women and their autonomy. Before Roe v. Wade, abortion was a dangerous procedure. However, these dangers did not stop women from attempting to get them. We have an interview with 2 women who have direct experience with abortion, and this is their take.
Why are you pro-choice? Have you always had this perspective?
I am pro-choice because what happens to my body is not anyone else's business but mine. Stuff happens. Life happens. Whether a pregnancy was planned or accidental, the choice to abort is up to the woman, no one else. This doesn't mean I think abortion should be used as a plan B. No, I absolutely do not support that. But I think it's important for a female to be able to make decisions that affect her body. And yes, I have always been pro-choice, and I will always be pro-choice.
I'm pro-choice because people should not have their lives dictated for them. If a woman does not want to raise a child, she should not have to, regardless of her circumstances. I see the pro-choice stance as being one to support human beings having full and healthy lives. I find the pro-life view is cruel and inhumane in a world where there's no way to guarantee the health and safety of every family. I've always had this perspective. I cannot remember a time when I felt having a baby was more important than having health and safety.
Does your belief system have an effect on your ideas about abortion?
No, I am not religious. Having a baby for religious values is selfish. I am not going to raise a baby in an unhealthy environment simply because my religion prohibits me from having an abortion. How does that make sense? How is that practical and responsible?
It absolutely does. My family is Christian and raised me to help take care of others. They instilled in me a faith in a higher power which would guide me to the best choice for myself and my future. If a woman does not feel that an abortion is the best choice, then she should not get one, but she should not be prevented from obtaining one if it is the best choice for her life. You have to ensure that your soul can be strong enough to handle the trials of your life and to help other people in the long term.
So what were the circumstances surrounding your decision to have the procedure done?
I got pregnant with the love of my life. It was not planned, but it made me the happiest I'd ever been. I was excited to be pregnant. Turns out, my partner was not emotionally mature or ready enough to have a child. I knew I couldn't raise a baby alone, especially while renting a room from strangers. So, even though the abortion was the farthest thing from what I wanted, I knew it was a decision I needed to make for the child. There was no way I could have raised him or her alone. My baby wouldn't have had a healthy upbringing. I was born into a family that was not ready. I needed to break the cycle so my child wouldn't grow up in an unhealthy environment. It will always break my heart, and I will always regret it and hate that I made that decision, but I will always know that it was the right decision for my circumstances.
I was 15 when I got pregnant. My boyfriend was emotionally abusive. I was afraid of him and didn't want him to be in my life or my baby's. If I had carried his baby to term, he would have had an avenue to control me for the rest of my life. It wasn't just a matter of health, but my long-term safety.
Were there obstacles to you receiving the procedure?
There were no obstacles at all. I found out I was pregnant just past my 4-week marker. I spent the next 5 weeks carrying my baby, talking to therapists, talking to doctors, and talking to my partner before deciding to schedule an appointment with Planned Parenthood. I scheduled it over the phone and had the procedure done just a few days later. I went into work that morning, worked a half shift, and met my partner at his house so he could drive us to Planned Parenthood. I was there for less than 2 hours. The procedure itself took less than 10 minutes, and just like that, it was done. I could never go back and change my mind.
There were not. I made an appointment over the phone, and we went after school, told my parents we were going to the mall. Any obstacles were purely emotional, not from the system.
How would your life to be different today if you had a child?
That's a hard question. I honestly don't know. I'd still be pregnant. My due date was December 1st. So, really, I could be having a kid anytime within the next 2 weeks. I wonder if my partner would have changed his mind. Would we be living together? Would I be alone? Would I regret not getting the abortion?
I would be so much more stressed. I don't necessarily think it would be a bad life, but I know I wouldn't have the same freedom or flexibility that I have now. I'm sure my anxiety would be off the charts. I would be struggling financially and emotionally. I don't know if I would even be in school. It would be a different world altogether.
What would you say to someone who is pro-life in order to persuade them to change their will?
Imagine being in my situation, or even worse. What if you were raped? Would you be okay with raising a child without a stable income or home?
I would tell them to consider the lives of the women getting the abortion. If they're concerned about lives, then they should consider quality of life as well. I would tell them to think about the issues that these families would encounter and about the support they will need in the future. I remind them that caring for their neighbors is Christ-like, and it's their duty to live a life that helps others.
Would you have still tried to obtain abortion if there was not a safe and legal way to do so?
No. I didn't even want the abortion to begin with, so I certainly would not have gotten one if it was illegal or unsafe.
Yes. Before I called to make the appointment, I'd already spent time looking for holistic ways to cause a miscarriage. I was desperate and angry. I considered ending my own life at one point, but I knew a safe abortion was an option. That option literally saved my life.
In 2014, decades after Roe v. Wade, abortions have reached an all-time low in the nation. Complex factors such as income, age, and race impact the difficult choice to have an abortion. This decision, as well as the support for pro-life or pro-choice views, are complicated and nuanced. This is a conversation that moves beyond statistics and takes the human impact into account. On one side, we have Gabriela saying that pro-choice is right because abortion is a private business of every woman despite any other medical or public mind factors. As she got pregnant not in appropriate circumstances for giving birth to a child and upbringing it. Gabriela made this decision because she could not repeat her parents' mistake and raise the child without the ability to provide everything it needs to become socially and financially independent. Moreover, the woman confirms that no obstacles prevented receiving the procedure. Since the woman does not imagine her future like if she was pregnant and she would not do the abortion if it were unsafe or illegal, it is possible to say that she is a conscious citizen of her country. On the other side, we have Hannah saying pro-choice is right because children should be raised in a healthy and safe environment only. The pro-abortion position of this woman is based on her Christian beliefs, which welcome, support, and help for other people around. Hannah states that she will raise a child if she is strong and healthy. Being pregnant at 15, the woman was concerned by the long-term effects of pregnancy on her health, which was a reason for abortion. Hannah felt only emotional obstacles for doing the procedure. The woman believed that abortion would make her inflexible and unable to realize her social potential. Finally, Hannah would advise those who face a similar situation to consider the quality of life, which can change after getting pregnant in unfortunate circumstances. Therefore, the two stories of these women provide sufficient evidence for pro-choice abortion. Finally, I have a question for our audience. Does our informative presentation today impact your view on abortion or even your vote?